Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Busy Thursday night. We are recording right after the first round of the NFL draft. We'll save some of this for Friday morning if you're watching on YouTube, but there is no more time to waste, so let's go ahead and get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, NFL draft was Thursday night. You know what happened. You know the stories. You know that Cam Ward went 1 to the Titans. You know that the Jags traded up to number 2 to take Travis Hunter. You know Ashton Genty went off the board early. Will Campbell is a Patriot. But the story of the night, the story that is going to lead every single talk show on Friday morning and really going to lead the narratives going into Friday night and Saturday is what didn't happen in the first round of the NFL draft. And that is the guy that if you're watching on YouTube, you can see on the screen right there, Shedeur Sanders, who I think at various points people thought might be the number 1 overall pick. The player that Mel Kiper had as his best quarterback on the board. 32 picks were made on Thursday night. None of them were Shedeur Sanders. So now listen, I'll say this, and if you listen to this show, if you follow the channel, I try not to get into the NFL draft narratives and discourse because the bottom line to me is that, I just feel like I hate this notion of, well, so-and-so talked to an NFL scout who says this. An assistant coach says that. Like, to me, what I always say is pretty straightforward. One singular source does not make a story. It's not interesting to me, okay? You talk to a GM that doesn't like Shedeur Sanders or that loves Shedeur Sanders? Well, let me ask you a question. Are they drafting a quarterback? Do they already have a quarterback? Have they evaluated Shedeur Sanders? Because the idea of these stories of, Shedeur might have a second-round grade. He might not be a first-round guy. He might go top 5. I don't really care because, again, it's all nonsense. It's all noise going into the NFL draft. But the one thing that I will say is that by the time we got to Thursday, it was pretty consistent that it felt like Shedeur was going to be out of the top 10. There was noise about the New Orleans Saints at number 9 at various points, but it felt like that noise had died down. It felt like it was either going to be 21 to the Steelers or a team trading into the 20s, probably the Giants or Browns, to select him. None of it happens, and it means that Shedeur Sanders is still on the board heading into day 2. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on podcast, he might be off the board by the time you see this. Let me say this. I'm just going to be transparent. I'm just going to say it exactly how I feel. I think it is freaking insane that this kid did not come off the board, and I think it's just absolutely crazy. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in. First of all, let me say this. I understand he's not a perfect prospect. I don't think the perfect prospect exists. I know they had like Andrew Luck had a perfect grade a million years ago. Trevor Lawrence was pretty close. No perfect prospect exists, okay? But at the same time, what I will say is let's just look at the facts on Shedeur. Take your opinion about Shedeur out of it. Take your opinion about Coach Prime Deion Sanders out of it. Take your opinion about the Sanders family out of it, and they're on all these commercials and da-da-da, whatever. No matter whether you like them or not. I'm just going to give you facts. we're going to take our opinions out of it. I'm just going to go ahead and give you facts on Shedeur Sanders, okay? This season, Shedeur Sanders, 37 touchdown passes, 4,100 yards passing, only 10 touchdowns, 74% completion percentage. 37 touchdowns in the Big 12, 4,100 yards, 9 yards per completion, 74% completion percentage, 37 touchdowns. This after a 2023 season in which he completed 70% of his passes, 7.5 yards per completion, 27 touchdowns. The thing also about Shedeur that is worth noting, and I think it's important, listen, he did it essentially with no run game, okay? 2 years ago was just a disaster. We all watch those games that first season. Colorado starts out 3-0. They finish 1-9 down the stretch, or 1-8 down the stretch. But in 2023, worst run game by a mile. Okay, This year, it gets a little bit better, but Colorado finished dead last in rushing yardage. It doesn't end up being statistically significantly better. But I sit there and say, we are talking about a guy that with no run game, with limited O-line, finished with 37 touchdown passes on 74% completion percentage. And I know what people are going to say. Well, the offense was built around. No. The offense wasn't built around anything. Pat Shurmur came from the NFL. Pat Shurmur is a former NFL head coach. You think he's coming to Colorado to just placate Shedeur Sanders? No, he's coming there to build the best offense that he can possibly have. And then, oh, by the way, let's also remember this. Go back to those games. Do you remember watching those games? Because I remember watching them, and they would ask him, and the broadcasters would talk about it, whether it was Brock Heward, whether it was Joel Klatt, whether it was Louis Riddick. They'd say, do you guys just not run the ball because you have Shedeur and Travis Hunter and LeJontay Wester, et cetera? Or do you not run it because you don't think you're going to be successful? And Pat Shurmur was basically like, I would like to have more of a balance, but we have Shedeur Sanders. We have LeJontay Wester. We have Travis Hunter. And so, yeah, we're going to throw the ball a lot because that's what's going to put us in position to succeed. And, oh, by the way, that's maybe the most important stat about Shedeur Sanders. Won 9 games this year at Colorado, a year after they went 4-8, and 2 years after they went 1-11 before him, Coach Prime, Travis Hunter, all those guys got there. And so to me, this is insane, okay? Bottom line, the stats are there. The production is there. Again, I know he's not perfect. We'll talk about it in a second. But here's the other thing, right? Because, again, draft time, you hear these anonymous scouts, it was this. I didn't like working with him behind the scenes. It was a bad interview, blah, blah, blah. Here's 2 things stand out to me. One, I don't really care what some anonymous scout has to say that probably didn't spend very much time around him. Go back and listen to all of the media members that were actually around the team. Take my opinion out of it, okay? Joe Klatt, Louis Riddick, Brock Heward. I know Brock Heward's not even in the media anymore, but you get the point. They all say to a man that Shedeur is a great kid, that he loves football, that he's a great teammate, that behind the scenes there were no issues. And I'll even take it a step further because I did do this and I put it out on my Twitter feed at Aaron_Torres on Twitter. By the way, if you are a Buffs fan, if you are a Shedeur fan, if you are a Coach Prime fan, Torres on CU. We just started this account. It's only got about 100 followers. Our Torres on pages blow up. Some of them have as many as 3,000-4,000 followers. This one just started. We're at about 100 subscribers, 100 followers. Follow us on Twitter, Torres on CU, okay? But the bottom line, as far as I'm concerned, is pretty straightforward. I texted somebody that was in that building, during the draft. And I asked him, I said, you were with Shedeur every single day. This was a person that was part of Colorado football during the 2024 season. Obviously not going to give a name. I know it's anonymous source season. I'm going to give you an anonymous source. And I asked him, I said, dude, I just got to ask you. I'm going to go on air and talk about this. Am I missing something? Is there something that I don't know about before I go on and give praise and this and that? He goes, no. He said, Shedeur is awesome. Great kid, great teammate. Kids love being around him. Teammates love being around him. Never had an off the field issue while we were there in the 2 years that Shedeur was there. He said, I don't understand it. I think the word he used was flabbergasted or stunned or shocked or so. He just said, I don't get it. I don't get this at all. And so when you have people that are in the building every day, and listen, Shedeur's gone. There's no reason to protect him. If he's a pain in the butt, they would tell me. I think they would. Why would you protect him at this point? But the bottom line is this does not jive with what you're hearing behind the scenes. Now, it's funny. I'll say this. I know that there's been some reports about, hey, how was he as an interview? How was he as this? How was he as that? And some people said, the interview process wasn't great. This is what I would say to that. What I would say is I think we have to accept that we are just in a new world of college football. And a lot of these kids are making a lot of money a lot earlier than they ever have. And I'm just going to be honest. Sometimes when you make that much money earlier, you come off as a little bit arrogant. Doesn't mean you don't love football. Doesn't mean whatever. But this was the issue with Caleb Williams last year. Oh, Caleb Williams behind the... And it's like, you talk to people who play with him, they love him. But to me, I'm so over this narrative of, he walked in the room and he was this and he was that. Yeah, guess what? It's because he was successful and he had a little bit of money. And he's, if he wants to buy jewelry or a car, who cares? And I think this is something that we're going to start to slowly see phase out of the NFL draft conversation. it was funny. I was talking to somebody about this, is that, first of all, I think it's stupid. But do you all remember about 3, 4, 5 years ago, the conversations about NIL from the college coaches? It was like, oh, the quarterback might be making more than my OC, might be making more than the quarterback's coach. How are we ever going to deal with this as a coaching staff? Well, in college football, these were conversations that were happening 3, 4, 5 years ago. And what has ended up happening? Everybody's kind of figured it out. Everybody's figured out how to coach pros. Everybody's going to be fine. It's not a big deal. And we've moved on in college football. I think the NFL is just now getting to that point of like, oh, these guys are walking in with more money than some of the assistant coaches, new cars, new jewelry, fresh look, whatever. And it's like, I think that might be a turnoff, but that's not a reason not to take a quarterback that's going to change your franchise. And I do believe that Shedeur is that guy. Now, listen, I want to be clear. He's not perfect. I get it. He was a guy that took too many sacks as a quarterback this past year. I will not deny that. What I will also say, that's called coaching. Coach it out of them. Haven't we had quarterbacks before who don't want to run the ball out of bounds, and then you teach them, hey, run the ball out of bounds. Don't want to slide. They want to try to run people over. You coach that out of them. Well, coach it out of Shedeur. And the one thing about Shedeur, does he take too many sacks? Does he hold on the ball too long? Maybe. The one thing you don't have to question is that toughness. And so for all these people that are like, oh, he's an NIL baby and makes too much money and he wears too much this and his car's too that, turn on the tape. Watch him take a hit. Watch him have some 300-pound defensive lineman fall on him, and he pops up the next play and is ready to go. So I think it's blasphemous. I'll also say this. Listen, I don't want to drag somebody else into this conversation because, the bottom line is the NFL draft, it's the apple of somebody's eye. And I do get that. Listen, what a perfect, in a perfect world, we don't have to do this. But I'm just going to say it. I think it's crazy, as somebody who watches college football every Saturday, that the Giants traded into the first round to get Jackson Dart, but didn't want Shedeur, okay? Because I know what people are going to say. Oh, well, Jackson Dart played in the SEC, and Jackson Dart did this, and Jackson Dart. Okay, I get it. Here's the thing, though. I am a guy that picked Jackson Dart in the preseason to win the Heisman Trophy, okay? Why is that significant? It's because I watched him really closely. I promise you, there was no moment in time where I felt like Jackson Dart was a first-round quarterback. As a matter of fact, you know what it actually reminds me of? It actually reminds me of when Zach Wilson was at BYU. I've told this story a million times. Shout out to all my BYU people that are tuning into the show that probably haven't heard this take. But when Jackson Dart, or when Zach Wilson was at BYU, it was the COVID season. BYU was the only West Coast team playing that season for most of the year. The Pac-12 came back in late October, early November, whatever. I only bring it up because I host Fox Sports Radio 11 p.m. Eastern every Saturday. And so every BYU game was on. And it was the only thing on TV that year. There was no live games at that point. And so why I'm discussing this is because I remember watching Zach Wilson that year and being like, he's good. He's fun. I don't see the number 2 overall pick in that draft, and I never understood why he was the number 2 overall pick in the draft. Well, I bring it up because with Jackson Dart, I get it. There are moments where you feel like, oh, okay, like this guy's actually, he's really fun. He's this, he's that. Go back and watch the games, and go back and watch the games against good opponents. He wasn't good, okay? So I put this out on Twitter, but I think it's worth noting. This was on my personal page, Aaron_Torres. Jackson Dart, you look at the stats. Oh, okay. This past season, Ole Miss threw for 29 touchdowns, 69% completion percentage. SEC, well, I mean, he's good. I mean, those are great stats. I mean, he's obviously awesome. I mean, 29 touchdowns in the SEC, that's amazing. Go back and look. 5 touchdowns against Furman, 4 touchdowns against Georgia Southern, 6 against Arkansas. To my Razorbacks fans, I apologize, but we all know what that secondary was like last year. And then 4 in the bowl game against Duke. So essentially, by the way, you take out the bowl game. If you just opted out of the bowl game, 25 touchdown passes in 12 games. But then of his 29 touchdown passes, 19 were against Georgia Southern, Furman, Duke, and Arkansas. You know how many he had against the top 3 defenses that Ole Miss faced all year? He had 0 against South Carolina, top 20 defense. He had 1 against Oklahoma, top 20 defense. He had 1 against Georgia, top 20 defense. Now, to his credit, they did win all 3 of those games. That is worth noting. but also in a loss to Florida in the most important game of the season, 24 of 41, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So I know what people are going to say. Well, you can't blame him for having one bad game. Okay, he had one bad game against Florida. He had 0 great games against great competition. So I could go on and on. I think it's crazy. By the time some of you hear, see, listen to this, Shedeur will already have his team. I just think it's crazy. I think it is insane that Shedeur Sanders was not a first round pick. And I think he's going to make people regret it. I don't know where he's going to end up. I don't know what the situation is going to be, but I think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. And I cannot believe that he fell out of the first round.